All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we're still talking about property preservation, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm Danielle Pierce, creator of Real Estate Profit Lab, creator of Property Preservation Mastery as well. And I wanted to welcome you all to tonight's live stream. I definitely appreciate you all who've been tuning in faithfully and leaving your comments and chatting in the chat box and sending the emails to support@realestateprofitlab.com. Definitely appreciate you guys' engagement so far. It is really, really refreshing to see. With that in mind, we always like to start off with highs and lows. So let's see, a high is that I tried this new drink from Starbucks, an apple crisp macchiato. It is super good. A low is that, I can't think of any lows. Well, I was in Chicago and it was cold. I guess that was a low for me. I'll say this: the low is that I have fully transitioned to someone who thinks that 64 degrees or 60 degrees is cold. So that's my low for today. As always, come into the room, say hey, let me know where you guys are watching from. If you're brand new to the channel, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. So again, we're talking all things preservation, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The goal with this campaign is to give a comprehensive view of the pros and cons of the industry. There is no real estate niche that is without risk, that is without possibility of failure, that is without, that doesn't require a lot of hard work. And preservation is no exception, but I just happen to think that the upside potential in this particular industry beats out a lot of the other pathways in real estate. So we actually talked about that in a prior video where I discussed preservation versus tax liens versus flipping versus buy and hold. Yesterday, we had a really good conversation about, how to deal with contractors who are just acting a fool and what, how to, some suggestions on navigating those situations. And today we're talking about low profit or zero profit work orders. It is something that is a very real possibility. Actually, I would not even use the word possibility. It's going to happen to you as you get into the industry. But I do want you to be prepared for that. As we prepare all the other students as well, I want you guys to be prepared for those situations and how to encounter them. So I want to go ahead and get started with that. Examples of low dollar work orders, lock changes, lock boxes, and pretty much every inspection, with the exception of insurance inspections. And sometimes you'll do some inspections where you're checking to see the status of repairs to a particular property. Let's pay a little bit higher, like 50, 75 bucks. But if we're talking the basic drive-by inspections or the basic interior inspections, those pay, relatively little money. And so I want you guys to know that up front, because many people, well, I shouldn't say many, some people will get an order for a lock change, just say it pays $45. And you have to buy the lock, which if you buy the locks where we recommend, the locks are about $6. And of course you have to pay a contractor more than likely to get that particular work done. So they're like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna make any money? There's no profit left. Well, what should I do? This is not working. And the thing is, again, you have to be cognizant of the fact that you won't make money on every single work order. That's never the goal for preservation. And really, I would say probably for any real estate niche, right? 100% of the things that you do will not result in profit margins, and particularly, especially not large profit margins. So there's that. Some folks, unfortunately, never get past this stage and they throw in the towel immediately. I want to be crystal clear. My first 6 months in preservation, we made $29,000. So that was in 2013. And it was up from, we started in June. It was basically June through December. So $29,000. And I was thrilled and ecstatic about it. I didn't know what the next year would bring, but I was excited to be in the industry, excited to be working, excited to have this business. And my mindset from the very beginning was that this is going to make $250,000 a year. Well, lo and behold, the very next year, 2014, brought in $332,000 or so. And then every year has continued to be a multiple six-figure year. The highest grossing year was 2016, I believe, and that amount was 420 or something like that, 420, 422. So the business has worked out very well for me. But again, I'm very tenacious, very consistent, always learning and adjusting along the way. And those traits are what you need, again, for this industry or really anything else in real estate. So what I'll say is that those folks who manage to navigate this phase successfully, they tend to go on to be the most successful vendors that procure the most work. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying you have to do this type of low-paying grunt work, to prove yourself for months and months and years on end. I personally think that 3 to 6 months is a reasonable amount of time. And the reason for that is because many folks will give up pretty much anything within the first 90 days or so if they don't see the type of massive success that they feel like they deserve or that they feel like they should have after 90 days. I always find it interesting how quickly we are to we meaning myself, people in general. I find it interesting how quickly we give up on ourselves in terms of starting a business and giving ourselves these very short time frames, but we have given literally decades in many cases to jobs that have, paid you the same amount of money every single year or given very small increases in terms of salary. I just find that disconnect to be, I study it quite a bit because I'm always curious as to why we want to devote such little time and energy to ourselves and then give, all of our best time and most productive, hours of the day to, a 9 to 5. All right. Again, this ain't 9 to 5 slander though. If you got a 9 to 5, you should keep it. I'm not saying you should quit your job. That's never been my messaging. But I do think that it's important if you're willing to give this job this amount of time, at the very least, give your business that same amount of time. All right. So back to preservation. Once you've paid your dues, so to speak, and again, I think that time frame should be 3 to 6 months. It's time to move away from the bottom of the totem pole. Last thing about this, don't get caught up in bid preparation. There are quite a few companies that issue bids relentlessly. It is so annoying, and they never actually issue the bid approval. I'll give you an example. They'll say, hey, prepare a bid to demolish this house. First of all, you're not going to issue, there's not going to be a bid approval to demo this house, right? And if it is, as a new vendor, I would highly, highly recommend that you refrain from accepting even the bid approval or the bid, or let's say they do issue a bid approval. I would recommend that you not take on something like that as as a new vendor, right? I've actually never overseen or completed or been assigned a demolition, largely because those things are never, are rarely, if ever, issued. So what will happen is you'll have companies that'll send you out to a property to say, hey, give us a bid for to demo this property. And then 4 weeks later, hey, can you give us a bid to demo this property? And then another 2 months later, hey, by the way, can you go out to this property, the same property, and tell us how much it'll cost to destroy this property or to demo this property. So when you have situations like that, it's best you can decline bids, okay? You can decline bids. And I do recommend if you're getting to a point where you're tired of them, you feel like they're never panning out, you've contacted the coordinators and they've assigned the bids approvals to other companies, it's time for you to take a step back and say, okay, cool, I understand that, but please I'm going to decline, bids moving forward because that's not really beneficial to me. Now, the caveat to that is this, you only can really learn how to properly complete bids by doing them. So there's value in the practice. But again, I'm not a fan of anybody working, relentlessly for weeks and months on end without being compensated for it. So keep that in the back of your mind. All right, T. Tips to transition to a vendor that receives more work. This might be obvious, but complete your work orders on time, even the shitty, low-paying ones. Stop complaining. Complaining is rampant, I would say pretty much everywhere across every industry. You can find a Facebook group for anything you ever think about doing, right? Inspectors, appraisers, adjusters, people who are doing FEMA inspections, like the list goes on. And most of the posts are about, even business credit. Most of the posts are about people complaining or coming to vent to a group. There's nothing wrong with venting. There's nothing wrong with complaining. But if you find yourself doing that, spending most of your time complaining, that means by default, you're spending not enough time working. All right. I do want to point out that, pardon me, that you want to consider doing the low dollar work yourself. I know that everybody wants to outsource everything 100%. I want a hands-off business. I want passive income. I get it. We all do, right? But it is important that to the extent that you can, take care of some of those lower dollar work orders in-house if it's within, your local neighborhood. All right, because it's going to be difficult to outsource 100% of every single project or task that you're assigned. Make sure that you keep asking for bigger work orders over and over. Play nice, make friends with the vendor coordinators. These are the people that can issue you those larger dollar work items. How do I know? Because this is what I've done over the years and it works. Ask them how their day is going. Ask them if there's anything you can do to move up in the ranks. Ask them, if there's work orders that may be outside of your coverage area that are, over a certain dollar amount and you're interested in those. Just make yourself available because at the end of the day, they want to issue these work orders to companies that are going to get them done with the least amount of attitude and the greatest amount of efficiency. So you want to show up as that company. I'll give you an example. I was on the phone with American Airlines the other day, and I was looking for a flight change. And as you know, flight changes, even during the pandemic era, sometimes they make it easy for you and they say there's no fee. Other times it's more difficult. So I wanted a flight change. There was supposed to be a fee. I just talked to the guy and said, hey, how are you? How are you doing? I hope you're having a fantastic day. And we chatted for a couple minutes, and lo and behold, he just changed my flight to the time that I wanted and the day that I wanted. And he never even mentioned a fee at all. So it definitely works. So again, you want to be the person that you want to work with versus being someone who says, hey, I've been doing these bids for 3 months and I haven't gotten any work. What's going on? Or this is a waste of my time. Or, why are you doing this? Why are you doing it? Like, you want to approach people in the way that you want to be approached. Consider taking on more private client work. Pass out your contact info while you're at the respective properties, and consider getting some car magnets made to drive around in. I haven't utilized car magnets since, I think this was back in the first 3 years of, being an entrepreneur and paving my way and leaving my internal audit position. So I know that they actually do work, and they're relatively inexpensive to get made. But if you ride around with those, I guarantee your phone will ring. I guarantee it. Because people are always looking for folks to do things like landscaping or trash outs or board ups or whatever the case may be. And if you make it easy for folks to find you, then they will come and find you. All right. Also consider advertising on Thumbtack, and the other company, or the other app I should say, is TaskRabbit, to supplement your preservation business during this waiting, paying your dues period. Thumbtack works really, really well. I've had pretty good success with that in 2021. And TaskRabbit I have not utilized yet, but I have heard great things about it. So people that are actively looking for companies like yours, like mine, they will go to Thumbtack because it makes it easy. So you want to show up in places where it's easy for people to find you. All right. The goal, you guys, is simply this: to make money overall and to not necessarily get hung up on individual work orders. Because again, if you do that, you're going to drive yourself crazy and you're going to be mad. But if you tally out I shouldn't say tally, that sounds like very manual. So you could use Excel or you could use a Google Sheet, and you just put a line item for every single work order that you've ever been assigned. And at the end of, I would say every week, preferably on a Sunday, you want to look at the revenue for that particular week and then contrast that with the expenses for that particular week, and make sure that obviously the revenue number is where it needs to be or where you want it to be, and that you are in fact showing a profit. I think that's the best way moving forward to kind of gauge whether or not your company is profitable, versus saying, oh, if I send this contractor to go install this lock, I'm only going to make $5. I'm not going to make any money. Like, that's not the correct way to look at it. And then the last thing I forgot to mention this earlier is most preservation vendors severely neglect what we call bid approvals. So there are a list of items, literally dozens of items that can be done at any given time I won't say any given property, because some properties aren't yet qualified to have the bid approved, the pre-approved items completed. This will be an example of a property, let's say, that is in PFC, pre-foreclosure. So the property is not quite foreclosed, but it's vacant. People have abandoned it. You can't go in there and do pre-approvals unless it's like life-threatening. But for other properties that are completely foreclosed, you can go in there, you can do smoke detectors, you can repair banisters, you can change out the door frames, you can request to make a note that it needs a new front door, you can do board ups, you can do gas caps or water caps. You can do a very long list of items at your discretion at these properties. And most vendors typically will ignore those things, right? And they'll just go to the property and complain about doing a lock change and an inspection and how they're not making any money. So I do want to caution you to, if you're in the industry right now, ask for, what are the list of pre-approved items? What are the, what types of properties can I do these tasks on? And make sure that you start doing it and training your team to do those as well. It's a great way to generate extra money from just going to a property and doing something very basic like a lot change. So if you get there and you see a bunch of paint cans or spray cans, like those are all things that actually pay pretty well that most vendors ignore, unfortunately. So we're coming to close to the end of this campaign, you guys. If you are on our email list, we did send out a discount code for tonight, good for $500 off of the flagship property preservation mastery program. Highly encourage you to go take advantage of that particular offer. If it's not in your inbox, please check your spam folder. If you're not on our email list, go to propertypreservationmastery.com, complete our very short readiness assessment to take the quiz, and automatically you'll be added to the list. Tomorrow, I think we're talking about, what are we talking about tomorrow? Let me check, because I forgot. Oh, yeah, we're talking about companies that refuse to pay. The easiest way to navigate those situations is to not work with those companies. It is pretty obvious which companies, mainly obvious, I should say, which companies won't pay you or will take forever to pay you. But sometimes what I found is that folks are just so anxious and eager to get started. They'll just be like, hey, they reached out to me to do work and I want to do some work. So we're working together and I haven't gotten they haven't paid me. It's been like 60 days. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow night, 7:00 Central Standard Time. Please be sure to tune in for that. And then after that, there'll be a live Q&A session where I will address, any lingering questions about the things that we've talked about during this campaign, any other questions you have about the industry, stuff that you've heard or stuff that you've read on blogs, stuff that you've seen inside of the Facebook groups for preservation. I can address those questions, or I will address those questions during the live Q&A session. And that's going to be Sunday, September the 26th, I believe, at 7:00 Central Standard Time. That Sunday will be the last day of discounts for a while. So if you've not taken advantage of the prior discounts, I highly encourage that you do so expeditiously. All right. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. So appreciate your time. Appreciate your feedback and your commentary. Appreciate you sharing the video. And as always, sending you guys love, light, peace, blessings, grace, and clarity. Bye-bye.